Jake Morrison walked through the golden wheat fields of New Eden, watching the morning sun paint the sky in soft colors. The crops grew tall and healthy in the rich soil of this world that humans had called home for 30 years. He smiled as he saw children running between the plants, playing games while their parents worked the land. Jake was the colony administrator, but he never felt like he was above anyone else. He worked alongside the farmers, helped fix broken equipment, and made sure everyone had what they needed. The people of New Eden trusted him because he cared about them like family. Lisa Campbell joined him at the edge of the field. She was his deputy and best friend, someone who had been with the colony since the early days when they were still building the first shelters. Her hair was gray now, but her eyes still sparkled with the same energy she had when they first arrived on this world. "The harvest looks good this year," she said, watching a group of farmers loading grain onto hover trucks. "We might have enough extra to send to the new colonies." Jake nodded. This was what they lived for. Growing food, building homes, raising families. New Eden was proof that humans could create something beautiful when they worked together. No wars, no fighting, just people making a life among the stars. 200 miles away on the mining world of Copper Ridge, Ryan Parker was having his morning coffee in the control room of the main facility. Through the windows, he could see the massive machines that dug precious metals from the rocky ground. The work was hard, but the miners were proud of what they did. They provided materials that helped build new human worlds across this part of the galaxy. Amy Sullivan sat at her communication station checking messages from other colonies. She liked her job because it connected her to people on dozens of different worlds. Every day brought news of new settlements, new families, new communities growing under distant suns. "We got a message from the Hendersons on Greenfield," Amy said with a smile. "Their daughter just had her first baby, a little girl." Ryan grinned. "That makes what? The 15th new baby this month across all the colonies?" 16th, Amy corrected. "The Johnsons on New Terra had twins yesterday." This was the life they had chosen. Simple, peaceful, focused on building rather than destroying. Both New Eden and Copper Ridge were examples of human expansion done right. No conquest, no taking land from others, just finding empty worlds and making them bloom with life. But far away in the cold depths of space, other eyes were watching the human colonies. Eyes that did not see beauty in the growing settlements, but danger. The Valdari Confederation met in their great council chamber on the capital world of Valdros Prime. 7 different alien species sat around the curved table, all united by their fear of human expansion. Their leader, Supreme Commander Velnash, was a tall creature with dark blue skin and 4 arms. His species had ruled this part of space for thousands of years. Ambassador Zektar stood before the council. He was shorter than Velnash, with gray skin and large black eyes that never seemed to blink. His people were known for their intelligence and their ability to see danger before others noticed it. "The humans grow too fast," Zektar said, his voice sharp with worry. 30 years ago they had 5 worlds. Now they have 47. In another 30 years they could have 200. "They are farmers and miners," said one council member. "What threat do they pose?" Zektar turned to face the speaker. "Numbers are a threat by themselves. Too many humans means too much human influence. Eventually, they will want what we have." Supreme Commander Velnash listened carefully. His people had fought many wars to control their territory. They understood that sometimes you had to act before your enemy became too strong to stop. "What do you suggest?" Velnash asked. "A demonstration," Zektar replied. "We attack a few of their smaller colonies, kill enough of them to send a message, show them that expansion has a price, make them afraid to grow too fast." The council members talked among themselves in their various languages. Some were worried about attacking humans, but others agreed with Zektar. The humans did seem to be spreading very quickly across worlds that the Valdari might want for themselves someday. "Which colonies?" Velnash asked finally. Zektar showed them a holographic display of human space. 2 worlds glowed with red light. New Eden and Copper Ridge. Both are far from Earth and the other major human worlds. Both have large populations but no military defenses. A quick strike will kill millions and show the humans that they are not safe anywhere. The vote was close, but Zektar's plan won. 12 Valdari destroyers and 4 cruisers would attack the human colonies. They would bombard them from orbit, destroy the major cities, and leave. A simple message written in fire and death. What the Valdari did not understand was that they were about to make the greatest mistake in the history of their species. The human colonies looked defenseless because humans wanted them to look that way. The peaceful farmers and miners were not warriors, but they were protected by something far more dangerous than local defense forces. They were protected by the promise that any attack on human civilians would wake something that had been sleeping for a very long time, something that other species had never seen because humans had chosen to keep it hidden. The Valdari fleet moved through space toward New Eden and Copper Ridge, confident in their superior technology and firepower. Their commanders believed they were about to teach a lesson to weak farmers who had spread too far from home. Instead, they were about to learn why Earth had never been successfully invaded in all of human history. Not because it was impossible to attack, but because the cost of attacking humans was always higher than anyone was willing to pay. Jake Morrison stood in his office that evening, looking out at the lights of New Eden's capital city. Families were having dinner. Children were doing homework. People were living normal, happy lives. He had no idea that enemy ships were already moving toward his world. Lisa Campbell was at home, reading a book to her granddaughter who was visiting from another colony. Ryan Parker was having dinner with his wife in their small apartment near the mining facility. Amy Sullivan was working late, sending messages to worried families on other worlds. None of them knew that in just a few hours, their peaceful lives would end in fire. But they also did not know that their deaths would awaken something that would make the Valdari wish they had never heard the word human. The dragons were sleeping, but not for much longer. The attack began at sunrise on New Eden. Jake Morrison was having his morning coffee when the first plasma beams fell from the sky like burning rain. The capital city's main square, where children played every morning, disappeared in a flash of white light. The explosion threw Jake against the wall of his office, breaking his ribs and cutting his face with glass. Outside, people screamed and ran as more beams carved through buildings like they were made of paper. Jake crawled to his emergency radio, blood running down his face. His hands shook as he tried to send a message to the other colonies on Earth. "This is New Eden," he said into the radio, his voice weak. "We are under attack. Ships in orbit. They are killing everyone. Tell Earth. Tell them we never hurt anyone. Tell them we were just farmers." Another beam hit the government building. Jake Morrison died trying to save his people, just as he had lived serving them. Lisa Campbell was in the emergency bunker under the city when she heard Jake's final message. She had been preparing the evacuation plans, trying to get the children to safety first. The bunker was supposed to protect them from storms and accidents, not from weapons that could melt steel. "All colonies, this is New Eden Emergency Center," she said into her radio. "We count 16 ships attacking us. They are not responding to our surrender signals. Repeat, we are trying to surrender, and they will not stop shooting." The walls of the bunker began to glow red from the heat outside. Lisa looked at the 30 children and 20 adults crowded into the small space. Some were crying, others praying in different languages. She wished she could tell them everything would be okay. "We never wanted to fight anyone," she whispered into the radio. "We just wanted to grow food and raise our families. Why are they doing this to us?" The bunker collapsed 12 minutes later. Lisa Campbell died holding a little girl who had been afraid of the dark. On Copper Ridge, Ryan Parker and Amy Sullivan watched through the mining facility's windows as the same alien ships appeared in their sky. Ryan had been a soldier once, 20 years ago, before he came to the mining world to find peace. He recognized warships when he saw them. "Amy, send the message now," he said. "Tell them what happened to New Eden. Tell them we are next." Amy's fingers flew over her communication equipment. She sent signals to every human world she could reach, broadcasting on all frequencies. "This is Copper Ridge Colony. Alien ships are attacking New Eden. Millions are dead. The same ships are now over our world. We have 4,000 people here, and no weapons. We need help. The first plasma beam hit the main mining complex. Ryan grabbed Amy's hand as the building around them began to melt. Did the message get through? He asked. Yes, Amy said, tears in her eyes. Earth knows. All the colonies know. They died together when the facility exploded, but their message had already traveled across space at the speed of light. On Earth, President Catherine Walsh was eating breakfast with her family when the emergency call came. She had been president for 6 years, and she had always hoped this day would never come. She left her half-eaten eggs and rushed to the underground command center beneath the capital city. The room was full of people in military uniforms and business suits, all looking at the big screens that showed the destruction of New Eden and Copper Ridge. The death count was climbing. 2 million, 3 million, 4 million innocent people dead in just 6 hours. Fleet Admiral Nathan Cross stood at the main display, his old face hard as stone. He had gray hair and tired eyes, but his voice was strong when he spoke. Madam President, we have confirmed the complete destruction of both colonies. The attacking ships have withdrawn. We lost 4.2 million civilians. President Walsh stared at the images of burning cities and dead children. She had been a teacher before she became a politician. She had spent her life trying to build a better world for human children. Now she was looking at the bodies of thousands of those children, killed by aliens who thought humans were too weak to fight back. What do we know about the attackers? She asked. Valdari Confederation ships, Admiral Cross replied. 16 vessels total. They used stealth technology to approach, then bombarded the colonies from orbit for 6 hours before leaving. No communication, no demands, no warning, just murder. Around the table sat the most powerful people in human space. General Peter Stone commanded the 3rd Marine Division on Mars. His soldiers were tough fighters who had trained for years, but they had never seen action because humans had been at peace for so long. Admiral Karen Hughes controlled the Deep Space Patrol fleets that protected human shipping lanes. Dr. Helen Foster was the Secretary of Xenological Affairs, the person who studied alien species and tried to keep peace between humans and their neighbors. President Walsh looked at each of them. Options? General Stone spoke first. We mobilize everything. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have. We find the Valdari homeworld and we make them pay for what they did. How long? The President asked. 48 hours to assemble the fleet. Maybe less. Admiral Hughes leaned forward. Madam President, the Valdari think they attacked defenseless farming colonies. They have no idea what they have actually done. Doctor, Foster cleared her throat. The Valdari made their decision based on incomplete information. They saw our colonies growing and decided to kill our civilians to slow our expansion. They believe humans are weak because we choose peace over war. President Walsh stood and walked to the display showing the dead cities. They killed farmers and miners, people who never hurt anyone, children who were just playing in the morning sun. She turned back to the room. The Valdari Confederation has made a choice. They have chosen to see human restraint as human weakness. They have chosen to murder our civilians. They have chosen war. Her voice grew harder. Now we choose our response. Admiral Cross, authorize Operation Sleeping Dragon. Full mobilization. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon system we have, kept in reserve. I want 400 warships ready for deployment within 48 hours. Yes, Madam President, Admiral Cross said. What are the rules of engagement? President Walsh looked at the images of dead children one more time. There are no rules. The Valdari wanted to send us a message written in the blood of our families. We will send them a reply written in the ashes of their worlds. Across human space, the word spread like wildfire. On Mars, General Stone's Marines began loading ammunition and checking their weapons. On Luna Base, Admiral Hughes recalled every patrol ship and started fueling the big battleships that had been in storage for decades. On the industrial world of New Pittsburgh, factory owner Brad Johnson received orders to stop making farm equipment and start making missiles. But the most important calls went to facilities that most humans did not know existed. Secret shipyards, where special vessels had been built and hidden. Research stations where new weapons had been developed and tested. training centers where soldiers had been prepared for a war that everyone hoped would never come. The Valdari had made one critical mistake. They thought that because humans chose to be peaceful, humans were unable to be warriors. They had confused kindness with weakness, mercy with helplessness. They were about to learn the difference between a species that cannot fight and a species that chooses not to fight. The dragons had been sleeping for a very long time, but the murder of 4 million innocent people had woken them up, and dragons, once awakened, are always hungry. Admiral Nathan Cross stood on the bridge of the UHS Leviathan, watching hundreds of human warships gather in the space around Earth. The massive dreadnought was 3 miles long and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But Cross knew that the visible fleet was only part of what humanity was preparing to unleash on the Valdari. Captain Sam Turner brought his destroyer UHS Reaper into formation alongside the other ships. He had been a patrol officer for 15 years, keeping shipping lanes safe from pirates and raiders. His ship was fast and deadly, but he had never used its weapons against anything bigger than a smuggler's cargo hauler. Today, that would change. Captain Nicole Brown commanded the cruiser UHS Vengeance, one of the newer ships in the human fleet. Her crew had trained for years in combat simulations, but like most human military personnel, they had never fought in a real war. The Valdari were about to discover that training could be more dangerous than experience when the trainees had been preparing for decades. President Walsh spoke to the assembled fleet commanders through encrypted channels. Her face appeared on screens throughout the massive formation of warships. The Valdari believe they have taught us a lesson. They think we will be afraid to expand further into space. They are wrong. We are going to teach them what happens when you murder human families. But even as the main fleet prepared for war, something else was happening in the dark spaces between stars. Ships that did not appear on any official registry began to move. The Ghost Fleet had been humanity's most closely guarded secret for 50 years. Admiral Michelle Kane commanded these invisible vessels from her flagship, a ship so advanced that it bent light around itself to become completely undetectable. Her fleet had been built in hidden shipyards using technology that human allies did not know existed. For half a century, these ships had patrolled the edges of human space, watching and waiting for the day they would be needed. Ghost Leader, to all units, Kane spoke into her communication system. Operation Dragonfire is authorized. We are going hunting. 24 ships that could not be seen or detected began moving toward Valdari space. Their hulls were made from materials that absorbed radar and scanner beams. Their engines produced no heat signature. Their weapons fired projectiles that traveled at 90% of light speed. The Valdari had never encountered anything like them because humanity had never revealed that such ships existed. On Earth, Director Chris Morgan activated systems that had been theoretical for decades. The Strategic Warfare Division controlled computers that could track and target thousands of enemy ships simultaneously. These artificial intelligence systems had been learning and improving for 30 years, studying every piece of information humanity had gathered about alien military technology. The targeting grid is online, Morgan reported to President Walsh. We can paint every Valdari ship in their home system and coordinate strikes from multiple vectors. They will not be able to defend against what we are about to do to them. Colonel Linda Torres led the 15th Special Operations Group through their final preparations. Her soldiers looked almost human, but decades of genetic and technological enhancement had made them into something far more dangerous. They could survive in space without suits, see in complete darkness, and move faster than normal humans could track with their eyes. Remember, Torres told her troops as they checked their equipment, the Valdari killed children. They murdered families. They thought we were weak because we chose peace. Show them what human warriors really look like. The first sign that something was wrong came when Valdari border stations began to disappear. Commander Vel Nash received reports from the outer rim of Valdari space that made no sense. Entire outposts had simply vanished, leaving no debris, no distress signals, no trace that they had ever existed. Send reconnaissance ships, Vel Nash ordered. Find out what happened to Station Zekhar. 3 Valdari scouts jumped to hyperspace toward the missing station. They never arrived at their destination. Their ships were intercepted by Ghost Fleet vessels that the scouts never saw coming. The human ships fired once each, turning the Valdari scouts into clouds of expanding gas and metal fragments. Back on Valdari Prime, Ambassador Zektar was beginning to worry. "Supreme Commander, we may have underestimated the human response. Our intelligence reports suggest they are mobilizing far more ships than we expected." "How many ships?" Velnash asked. "Over 400 warships, possibly more. And there are reports of vessel types that do not match any known human designs." Velnash felt a cold fear creeping up his spine. 400 ships was more than the entire Valdari fleet. Where had the humans been hiding so many warships? Their colonies had been defended by nothing more than police cutters and patrol boats. Dr. Richard Hayes was giving a briefing to human military commanders that would have terrified the Valdari if they could have heard it. "We have been studying Valdari biology, psychology, and technology for 30 years. We know that their ships use a specific type of shielding that becomes unstable when hit with polarized particle beams. We know that their soldiers panic when separated from their command structure. We know that their society will collapse if we eliminate their leadership caste." Hayes brought up a holographic display of Valdari Prime. "We know the location of every important building on their homeworld. We know their military codes. We know their supply routes. We know exactly how to break them completely." The human fleet began moving toward Valdari space, but they were not alone. Intelligence reports flowed in from across the galaxy as other alien species watched the massive human mobilization with growing alarm. The peaceful farmers and miners had revealed themselves to be the tip of an enormous military iceberg. Captain Turner's destroyer was part of a scouting force that encountered the first Valdari patrol near the border between human and Valdari space. 6 Valdari ships detected the human vessels and moved to intercept them, confident in their superior technology and firepower. The battle lasted exactly 4 minutes and 12 seconds. Turner's ship fired weapons that the Valdari had never seen before. Beams of concentrated dark matter punched through Valdari shields like they were made of paper. Missiles that thought for themselves tracked down fleeing enemy ships and destroyed them with antimatter warheads. The engagement ended with 6 dead Valdari vessels and 0 damage to the human ships. "Command, this is Reaper," Turner reported to Admiral Cross. "Enemy patrol eliminated. No casualties on our side. The Valdari weapons could not penetrate our shields." Similar reports began coming in from across the front lines. Human ships were not just winning battles against the Valdari. They were winning so easily that it seemed like the aliens were fighting with toys against real weapons. On Valdari Prime, panic began to spread through the government. Supreme Commander Velnash called an emergency meeting of the Confederation Council. The 7 alien species that made up their alliance sat around the table, but now they looked afraid instead of confident. "The humans are not what we thought they were," Velnash admitted. "Our fleets are being destroyed. Our border stations have been eliminated. They are using technology that we do not understand." Ambassador Zektar's large black eyes were wide with fear. "Supreme Commander, I believe, we have made a terrible mistake. The humans were not weak, they were hiding their strength. They let us think they were defenseless farmers so we would underestimate them." "What do you recommend?" Velnash asked. "Immediate negotiations, full surrender. We beg for mercy and hope they will accept it." But even as the Valdari leadership realized their error, it was already too late. The Ghost Fleet had reached the inner systems of Valdari space. Admiral Kane's invisible ships were hunting down every Valdari vessel they could find, leaving no survivors to report what had happened to them. The dragons were fully awake now, and they had tasted blood. The Valdari had wanted to send humanity a message about the price of expansion. Instead, they had taught the galaxy a much more important lesson about the price of murdering human children. The real war was about to begin, and the Valdari were finally starting to understand that they were not fighting farmers and miners. They were fighting the descendants of a species that had spent millions of years learning how to kill each other, and had only recently decided to try something different. That decision had just been revoked. The first major battle happened at the Kelton system, where the Valdari had built their strongest military base. 50 Valdari warships defended the system, including their newest battleships, and their most experienced crews. Commander Velnash had sent his best forces there, believing that if the humans could be stopped anywhere, it would be at Kelton. Admiral Cross brought his main fleet to the edge of the system. The UHS Leviathan led 200 human warships toward the Valdari defensive positions. To the aliens watching on their sensors, it looked like a normal space battle was about to begin. They thought they understood what was coming. They were wrong. Captain Sam Turner's destroyer UHS Reaper moved with the main fleet, its crew ready for battle. Turner had fought pirates before, but this was different. This was war against aliens who had murdered millions of innocent humans. His weapons officer, Lieutenant Jack Davis, checked their targeting systems one final time. All weapons ready. Captain, Davis reported. Dark matter cannons charged and locked on target. Captain Nicole Brown's cruiser UHS Vengeance took position in the formation. Her crew had trained for this moment for years, but seeing it actually happen felt surreal. The aliens ahead of them had killed human children just days ago. Now those same aliens were about to learn what human military technology could really do. The Valdari opened fire first, sending streams of plasma and particle beams toward the human ships. Their weapons were powerful enough to destroy most alien vessels with a few hits. Against human shields, they barely left scorch marks. Admiral Cross watched the enemy fire splash harmlessly off his ship's protective barriers. All units return fire. Show them what we brought to this fight. The human response was devastating. Weapons that fired concentrated dark matter punched through Valdari shields like they were made of tissue paper. Missiles guided by artificial intelligence hunted down enemy ships that tried to escape. Beam weapons that used technology the Valdari had never seen before cut their battleships in half with single shots. But the real terror began when the Ghost Fleet revealed itself. Admiral Michelle Kane's invisible ships had been hiding inside the Valdari formation for hours, completely undetected. At her signal, 24 vessels that the aliens had never seen coming suddenly appeared throughout their defensive lines. Ghost Fleet, weapons free, Kane announced calmly. Make them regret what they did to our people. The cloaked ships fired at point-blank range into the Valdari vessels. Battleships that had been built to withstand massive amounts of damage exploded instantly when hit by weapons that fired antimatter directly into their hulls. Cruisers tried to turn and fight back, but the human ships moved too fast and hit too hard. Captain Brown watched through her view screen as a Valdari battleship 3 times the size of her cruiser died in a ball of white fire. Her weapons officer, Ensign Mark Cole, stared in amazement at what their technology could do. Captain, I count 37 enemy ships destroyed in the first minute, Cole reported. They can't hurt us, but we're cutting through them like they're made of paper. The battle became a slaughter. Valdari ships that had been confident in their superior numbers and defensive positions found themselves completely outmatched. Their weapons could not penetrate human shields. Their sensors could not track the Ghost Fleet vessels. Their commanders could not understand how humans had developed such advanced technology. In 15 minutes, 50 Valdari warships became clouds of expanding debris. Not a single human vessel was damaged, but Admiral Cross was not finished. He opened a communication channel to the Valdari base on the planet below. Valdari Command, this is Admiral Nathan Cross of the Human Colonial Defense Force. You have 30 minutes to surrender unconditionally, or we will demonstrate what happens to military installations that support the murder of human civilians. The Valdari base commander, a senior officer named Kezaval, responded with desperate courage. We will never surrender to primitive humans. Our reinforcements are coming. You cannot defeat the entire Valdari Confederation. Admiral Cross cut the communication. Colonel Torres, your units are cleared for planetary assault. Show them what human soldiers can do. Colonel Linda Torres and her enhanced warriors descended to the planet's surface in ships that moved too fast for Valdari sensors to track. Her soldiers were no longer completely human after decades of genetic and technological improvement. They could see in complete darkness, move faster than aliens could follow, and survive in environments that would kill normal people. The Valdari base was built into a mountain, protected by thick armor and energy shields. It had been designed to withstand bombardment from orbit and attacks by conventional ground forces. It had not been designed to face enhanced human soldiers who fought like nothing the aliens had ever encountered. Torres led her troops through the main entrance, which they cut open with weapons that melted through the strongest Valdari metals, like butter. The alien soldiers inside tried to fight back, but they were facing opponents who moved like ghosts and hit like lightning. "Remember New Eden," Torres told her soldiers as they cleared room after room. "Remember the children they killed." The human warriors used the base's own defense systems against it. They hacked into the computer networks and turned the automated guns on the Valdari soldiers. They filled the air circulation system with gas that was harmless to humans, but made the aliens dizzy and weak. They broadcast sounds that disrupted Valdari hearing and made it impossible for them to coordinate their defense. In 3 hours, the strongest Valdari military base in the sector was completely captured. The aliens who survived were taken prisoner, but most chose to fight to the death rather than surrender to the humans they had underestimated so badly. General Peter Stone led similar assaults on Valdari installations throughout their territory. His Marines did not just conquer alien positions, they studied everything they found. Every piece of technology, every tactical manual, every piece of intelligence about Valdari military capabilities was recorded and analyzed. "We're not just winning battles," Stone reported to Earth. "We're learning everything there is to know about how they fight, how they think, and how they can be defeated. By the time this war is over, we'll know the Valdari better than they know themselves." Director Chris Morgan coordinated the intelligence gathering from his command center on Earth. The artificial intelligence systems under his control processed every piece of information the military collected, building detailed profiles of Valdari weaknesses and tactical preferences. The Valdari military doctrine is based on overwhelming firepower and defensive positions, Morgan explained to President Walsh. They expect their enemies to attack directly and try to wear down their defenses over time. They have no concept of the kind of technological and tactical superiority we're demonstrating. Reports flowed in from across the war zone. Human forces were not just winning, they were winning so completely that it seemed impossible. Valdari fleets that outnumbered the humans were being destroyed without inflicting any casualties in return. Bases that had been considered impregnable were falling in hours instead of months. On Valdari Prime, Supreme Commander Velnash received reports that made no sense. How could humans have developed such advanced weapons while appearing to be simple? Farmers and miners? How could their soldiers move and fight like machines while still being biological beings? How could their ships be invisible one moment and devastatingly visible the next? "Sir," his communications officer reported with fear in his voice, "We're receiving surrender requests from 6 different star systems. Our commanders are asking permission to give up rather than face complete destruction." Velnash stared at the tactical displays showing the collapse of Valdari military power across their entire territory. Red symbols marked destroyed bases, eliminated fleets, and captured installations. In just 5 days, the humans had crippled military forces that the Valdari had spent centuries building. Ambassador Zektar entered the command center, his gray skin pale with terror. "Supreme Commander, we must contact the humans immediately. We must beg for mercy before they decide to eliminate our species entirely." But even as the Valdari leadership prepared to surrender, they did not understand the full scope of their mistake. The humans were not just technologically superior, they were strategically and tactically superior as well. Every battle, every engagement, every victory was part of a larger plan that would reshape the balance of power in this part of the galaxy. Captain Turner received new orders as his destroyer patrolled the wreckage of another Valdari fleet. "Reaper, you are directed to proceed to the Valdari homeworld. The final phase of Operation Sleeping Dragon is about to begin." The dragons were no longer just awakened. They were hunting, and their prey was beginning to understand that there would be no escape from the consequences of murdering human families. The Valdari had wanted to teach humanity a lesson about expansion. Instead, they had given humanity a reason to expand much faster, much further, and with much less concern for alien opinions about human growth. The end was coming, and it would be written in the language that the Valdari had chosen when they decided to communicate through the murder of innocents. Admiral Nathan Cross stood on the bridge of the UHS Leviathan, As the human fleet arrived at Valdari Prime, the homeworld of the aliens who had murdered 4 million innocent humans lay before them, a blue and green planet that looked peaceful from space. But Cross knew that peace was something the Valdari had forfeited when they chose to attack defenseless colonies. The planet was not defended. Every Valdari warship that could fight had already been destroyed in the battles across their territory. The orbital stations around their homeworld were empty, their crews evacuated or dead. The aliens who had been so confident just weeks ago now cowered on their planet, waiting for the humans to decide their fate. Captain Sam Turner brought his destroyer UHS Reaper into orbit, alongside the massive dreadnought. His crew watched the sensors, but there were no enemy ships left to fight. The war was over. Now came the harder part of deciding what to do with the species that had started it. "Sir," Lieutenant Jack Davis reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet. It's on all frequencies." "Put it through," Cross ordered. The voice that came through the speakers belonged to Supreme Commander Vel Nash. The proud alien leader who had authorized the attack on human colonies now sounded broken and desperate. "Admiral Cross, this is Supreme Commander Vel Nash of the Valdari Confederation. We request immediate negotiations for our unconditional surrender." Cross stared at the blue planet below. Somewhere down there lived the beings who had decided that human children should die to send a political message. "Supreme Commander, you will report to my flagship immediately. Come alone and unarmed. You have 1 hour." When Vel Nash arrived on the UHS Leviathan, he looked nothing like the confident military leader who had ordered the attacks. His arms shook with fear, and his dark blue skin had turned pale. He had expected to meet with primitive humans who would be grateful for any chance to make peace. Instead, he found himself facing beings who had revealed themselves to be the most dangerous species in the galaxy. "Please," Vel Nash said as he was brought before Admiral Cross, "we did not understand. We thought you were weak because you chose peace. We were wrong. We beg for mercy." Cross looked at the alien commander with cold eyes. "You killed farmers. You murdered miners. You burned children alive in their schools. What mercy did you show them?" "We made a mistake," Vel Nash whispered. "We will do anything to make up for what we did. Please do not destroy our species." Cross activated a communication link to Earth. President Catherine Walsh appeared on the screen, her face hard as stone. Behind her stood the leaders of human government and military, all of them thinking about the images of dead colonies and murdered families. "Supreme Commander Vel Nash," President Walsh said, her voice carrying the authority of an entire species that had been pushed too far. "You wanted to send humanity a message. You wanted to teach us that expansion has a price. Today you will learn what that message actually means." The terms that President Walsh presented were not negotiations. They were demands that no proud species would normally accept. But the Valdari were no longer in a position to have pride. The Valdari Confederation would be dissolved immediately. All 7 alien species that had supported the attack would lose their independence and become territories under human administration. Their military forces would be completely dismantled, with all weapons and warships turned over to human control. "Every Valdari world will be governed by human administrators," President Walsh continued. "Your people will be relocated to designated planets where they can be monitored constantly. You will work to rebuild what you destroyed, and you will do it under human supervision." But the most chilling demand came at the end. "Your species will serve as an example to every other alien civilization in this galaxy. They will all learn what happens when you attack human civilians. You will spend the rest of your existence making sure that no one ever makes your mistake again." Vel Nash listened to the terms with growing horror. His people would become slaves in all but name, scattered across worlds where humans could watch them forever. But the alternative was the complete extinction of his species, and he knew the humans were capable of that as well. "We accept," he said quietly. "We accept all your terms." Captain Nicole Brown oversaw the dismantling of the Valdari fleet bases, while Colonel Linda Torres established human military posts on every former Valdari world. The aliens who had once ruled this part of space now lived in settlements that looked more like prison camps, working to build new colonies for the humans who had defeated them. Dr. Helen Foster arrived to begin the process of studying Valdari, society, and determining how to manage a conquered species. Her job was to make sure the aliens could never again pose a threat to human expansion, while also ensuring they understood the lesson their defeat was meant to teach. "We're not just conquering territory," Foster explained to the human administrators, "taking control of Valdari worlds. We're sending a message to every species in the galaxy: attack human civilians, and this is what happens to you." General Peter Stone established the new military bases that would ensure human control over the former Valdari territory. His Marines patrolled alien cities, keeping order and reminding the conquered populations that their old lives were over. The soldiers who had once protected human colonies now made sure that the beings who had attacked those colonies could never do so again. Director Chris Morgan coordinated the intelligence operations that mapped every detail of former Valdari space. Human scientists studied alien technology, culture, and biology to understand how other species might threaten human interests in the future. The knowledge gained from conquering the Valdari would be used to prevent future attacks before they could begin. Within 6 months, the transformation was complete. The Valdari homeworld was now called New Terra, and it was governed by human administrators who reported directly to Earth. The blue and green planet that had once been the center of an alien confederation was now just another human world. Other alien species throughout the galaxy watched the conquest of the Valdari with growing fear. Intelligence reports reached Earth from dozens of different civilizations, all saying the same thing. The aliens who had seen humans as potential prey now spoke of them only in whispers. Captain Turner received orders to patrol the borders of what had once been Valdari space, making sure that other aliens understood the new reality. His destroyer now flew past worlds where humans were building new cities and establishing new colonies, at a rate that made their previous expansion look slow. "The dragons are awake and they're staying awake," Turner told his crew as they patrolled space that had belonged to aliens just months before. "Every species in the galaxy now knows what happens when you threaten human families." President Walsh addressed the Human Colonial Assembly from the capital city of New Terra, standing in the building that had once housed the Valdari government. Behind her flew a new flag that included symbols representing not just human worlds, but the conquered territories that now served as a warning to anyone who might consider attacking humanity. "The Valdari made a fundamental error in judgment," she told the assembled representatives from across human space. "They believed that because we chose peace, we were incapable of war. They thought that because we built farms instead of fortresses, we were defenseless. They failed to understand that humanity has always possessed the capacity for total destruction. We had simply chosen not to use it." She gestured toward the windows that looked out over the alien city that was being rebuilt. "According to human designs, that choice has been revoked. The dragons are awake and they will remain awake. Any species that threatens human civilians will not face our armies. They will face extinction." The final scene of the human victory took place in the schools of the former Valdari worlds, where alien children now learned human history alongside their own. They were taught about the colonies of New Eden and Copper Ridge, about the farmers and miners who had died there, and about the terrible price their species had paid for those murders. The young Valdari listened with wide eyes as their human. Teachers told them about Jake Morrison and Lisa Campbell, about Ryan Parker and Amy Sullivan, about all the innocent people whose deaths had awakened something that should have stayed sleeping. "Remember this lesson," the teachers told the alien children, "and make sure your children remember it too. Never attack those who choose peace, because they might be choosing not to destroy you rather than choosing because they cannot destroy you." The story of the Valdari became the most important tale in the galaxy, told on every world where intelligent life existed. It was the story of a species that mistook human kindness for human weakness and paid the ultimate price for that mistake. The dragons were awake now, and they were watching. Every alien civilization knew that humanity was no longer the peaceful species that had built farms among the stars. They were the inheritors of a world that had never been successfully conquered, and they had finally shown the galaxy why. The age of human expansion had truly begun, and it would continue until every star in the sky flew under human flags. The Valdari had wanted to slow that expansion by killing innocent people. Instead, they had guaranteed that it would happen faster, farther, and with less concern for alien opini.